Of all people, Randph Scott despised him the most. Born was Randolph Scott in Orange County, Virginia. George Randph Scott was born on January 23, 1898. The qualities that would come to characterize his on-screen persona and his life as an actor were instilled in him by his large, amiable Southern family, discipline, education, and honesty. Individual personality. George Grant Scott was a highly regarded textile businessman, and Lucille Crane Scott was a lady of exquisite taste and impeccable manners. They were the sons of highly esteemed individuals. As the second of 7 children, Randolph grew up in the North Carolina city of Charlotte with an air of calm assurance, integrity, which would thereafter play a pivotal role in his cinematic character. He was originally going to go into business or engineering like his father, having attended private institutions before transferring to Georgia Tech and UNC Chapel Hill. Hollywood and destiny, though, had different intentions. It took some time for Scott to become famous. He came back to civilian life with a newfound determination after serving with distinction as an artillery lieutenant in France during World War I. During his journey to California in the early 1920s, he was enchanted by the flourishing cinema industry that was growing in that place. Several casting directors were captivated by his towering stature, athleticism, handsome features, and charismatic Southern charm. He started out modestly, performing stunts and extra work, before getting small speaking parts in his acting career. In the beginning, he tried apart from many of his peers due to his modesty and tenacity. His rich, booming voice made him a formidable presence in talking pictures, and he had established a solid job in Hollywood by the late 1920s. Randolph Scott had a very successful career in the 1930s and 1940s. He made guest appearances in comedy and tragedies alike. Westerns like The Last of the Mohicans, 1936, Western Union, 1941, and The Desperado, 1943, are what made him a legend, though. The very definition of a classic Western hero, stoic, respectable, and steadfast when challenged. His fictional personas mirrored his actual temperament, which was based on honesty and bravery. Scott, in contrast to his contemporaries, refrained from the traps of celebrity excess. He gained fame because of his competence, serenity, and unwavering commitment to his work. 7 Men from Now, 1956, Ride Lonesome, 1959, and Comanche Station, 1960, are just a few of the great westerns that came out of his 1950s partnership with director Bud Bodker. These movies, which are now considered masterworks, depicted Scott as a man of action, plagued by remorse from the past, but led by an unwavering sense of right and wrong. Scott's impact went well beyond his last film role in Sam Peckinpah's 1962 feature Ride the High Country. His character in that film was that of a retired cop who finds it difficult to remain true to his ideals in the face of societal change, similar to the way he left Hollywood elegantly. He gracefully withdrew from acting on his own terms, leaving the screen with the utmost respect. He became one of the most wealthy actors of his time through prudent real estate and business investments. But even though he was well off financially, he stayed humble, rooted, and devoted to his loved ones and religion. Both of Randolph Scott's marriages, one to a member of the upper class and the other to a woman who brought him peaceful domestic happiness, illuminated distinct sides of his character. He wed heiress Marion for the first time in 1936. The woman was a member of the highly esteemed DuPont family in the United States, both in business and society. William DuPont Sr. was a member of the illustrious DuPont family, and Marion was their daughter. Marion's great-grandmother, Lucille DuPont de Neurs, was a chemist and entrepreneur of French descent, who established a Duponquier and beset by a company that ranks among the most influential in American business history. From his humble beginnings in North Carolina, Scott was thrust into a world of inherited riches and old money privilege through this marriage. The remarkable and successful Marion DuPont woman, who is more than just an AYS. She is a fiercely autonomous equestrian who has an intense love for the sport of horse racing and breeding. Once the property of President James Madison, her historic Virginia plantation Montpelier became a world-class horse breeding and training center under her ownership. In an intriguing turn of events, Randolph Scott had been best man at Marion's wedding to Virginia sportsman George Somerville before she married Scott. Their subsequent relationship took an unusual turn because of this strange link, which may indicate that their bond evolved from friendship into something more substantial and unexpected. A relationship. Scott and Marion DuPont's marriage, shrouded in glitz and glitter as it was certain to fail. Despite sharing affluence, their lives could not have been more dissimilar. As a rising figure in Hollywood, Scott was occupied with establishing his acting career in the Golden State, while Marion remained firmly entrenched in her horse activities and the Eastern social mores. Geographical and lifestyle differences meant that the pair often had to live apart. Their marriage terminated in divorce in 1939, just 3 years following their nuptials. Reportedly, the split was amicable, even if the couple did not yield any children. Interestingly, up until her death in 1983, Marion kept her husband's surname and continued to be known as Marion DuPont Scott. This long-term decision may have been influenced by an enduring affection or admiration between either of the two, or at least her wish to maintain a reputation in the philanthropic and horse racing communities. In his second marriage, Randolph Scott finally achieved the fulfillment he had been seeking after a period of celibacy. He tied the knot with the stunning actress Patricia Stillman in 1944, had a juniority of 21 years to him. Patricia had a short film career in the 1940s, but she married Scott and focused on raising their family. Their partnership was quite different from Scott's previous union with Marion DuPont, which was more strategically oriented toward social issues. This marriage appeared to be based on true love and common principles. The happy pair avoided the limelight that surrounded many celebrity weddings of the time and instead focused on building a stable home life for themselves. The family of Randolph and Patricia was enlarged in 1950, when 2 kids through adoption: Sandra, a daughter, and Christopher, a son. Despite his reputation as a gruff and untamed Western hero, Scott was said to be a caring and loving parent. His home life was described by friends and colleagues as friendly, and he had a good bond with his husband and family. His home life was a foundation of his subsequent happiness, and he was able to keep his marriage steady, free from controversy and public strife, unlike many of his contemporaries. Even after Randolph's death in 1987, Patricia and he continued to enjoy one of Hollywood's longest-running marriages, less flashy triumph tales. Leaving the hustle and bustle of Hollywood behind, the Scotts enjoyed a peaceful life. They divided their time between their Beverly Hills house and their ranch in Santa Barbara, where Randolph could indulge his passion for horses and the great outdoors. Scott was able to find the serenity and security he had been seeking through this lasting partnership that his prior marriage had failed to provide him. A quiet home life that reflected the reliable protagonists he played on cinema. John Wayne and Randolph Scott were 2 of the most iconic names in Hollywood westerns. They were the 2 majestic representations of strong manhood, each showcasing an own heroic quality on film. Their relationship was anything but cordial behind the scenes. Fans might have thought the 2 stars would get along famously because of how similar they were. But in reality, things were far more complicated. Randolph Scott, the dignified Southern gentleman known for his exquisite manners and reserved demeanor, had an enduring animosity toward John Wayne. There was more at play between them than just a professional animosity. They originated in the men's unique character traits, morals, and perspectives on performing and the cowboy code. "I never cared for the man," Scott once stated with no filters. "He represented everything in Hollywood I didn't admire." On and off set, Scott had always taken great satisfaction in his ability to remain composed. Quietly powerful, measured, and purposeful were his performances. Swaggering and shouting weren't necessary for him to project strength. John Wayne, in contrast, personified bravado. He was raucous, noisy, and a magnet for attention wherever he went. Scott found Wayne to be quite the showman. "A craftsman I was as well." Scott sees a distinction. The heroism that Wayne exhibited felt staged, even inflated. Unlike Scott, who prized controlled storytelling, he saw Wayne as an example of Hollywood myth-making. Scott, hiding behind the Duke's pristine persona, encountered what he referred to as a salesman's western, prioritizing appearances over honesty. Although they were never in a direct cinematic rivalry, their careers did cross paths on occasion. Still, you could feel an underlying sense of rivalry. During the 1940s and 1950s, both actors played starring roles in westerns, and producers frequently contrasted how successful each was. According to Scott, the studios made an effort to set us against one another. We were never meant to be compared, though. There were two games that we were engaged in. While Wayne's pictures were all about spectacle and patriotic enthusiasm, Scott's works frequently had a moral complexity, an air of introspection and interior conflict. That strategy seemed too simplistic to Scott. He claimed that I had portrayed men who questioned their own decisions. In his role as men who never raised any doubts, they had personality clashes in addition to creative issues. Scott had a reputation for being quiet and kind, never making a scene or bragging about his achievements. In contrast, Wayne was a vocal and politically active individual. His brash self-assurance and conservative opinions would frequently take center stage in discussions. He enjoyed discussing political issues and war. Scott said once, "Two things I never believed should be glorified in a saloon or on a soundstage." Scott was greatly angered by Wayne's dogmatic patriotism since, like the frontier, he believed there were many gray areas in life. Meetings between them frequently devolved into awkward silence or sharp remarks due to their temperamental differences. Among them were slights directed at individuals that deepened the divide. According to reports, Scott felt offended multiple times when Wayne made casual remarks about his acting approach. It was said that Scott was too pretty to play a real cowboy by Wayne, who is notoriously direct. Scott had a knack for remembering what a slight. He believed that his outspokenness gave him credibility. To paraphrase what Scott stated afterwards, "I thought being real meant being quiet." Scott would gracefully depart a party upon Wayne's arrival, as was known even among Hollywood's elite. They both, Gary Cooper and Joel McCrea, two performers who were friends and acquaintances, frequently found themselves caught between the two men, cautious not to publicly promote either of them. But what Scott saw as hypocrisy was probably the most fundamental reason for his distaste. Wayne had shied away from military service. Contrary to his heroic on-screen persona, many in the Hollywood elite subtly despised the decision to enlist in the military during WW II. Scott, who had always had a lot of respect for the military and had other methods of supporting the war effort, thought this was a morally wrong move. Those males who remained at home were not judged, Scott stated. However, I couldn't stand individuals who put on a show of fighting, takes part in fictional conflicts after declining military service. That inconsistency characterized Wayne, according to Scott, an individual who prioritizes outward appearances above internal values. Scott never publicly attacked Wayne or tried to discredit his legacy, no matter how much he disliked him. His private dislike was only made public in late-in-life frank interviews. "I was impressed by his achievements," Scott confessed, "but I never respected the man." After their feud, the two Western icons kept to themselves and rarely spoke with one another. The 1950s. Still, their animosity, which they kept under wraps, entered Hollywood legend. Both individuals had significant impacts on the development of Western music, despite their distinctions. Scott exemplifies lofty virtue and moral intricacy, whereas Wayne exemplifies heroics on a grander scale. Contrary to expectations, their differences might have been the genre's balancing factor. There was still an enduring animosity rather than any kind of love or friendship in Randolph Scott's heart. "I would never go horseback riding with John Wayne," he declared with icy certainty once. John Randolph Scott passed away in Beverly Hills, California, at the age of 89 due to complications with his heart and lungs. His final resting place was Charlotte, North Carolina's Elmwood Cemetery. Patricia, his wife of 43 years, was still with him. She passed away in 2004 and is laid to rest beside her spouse. In 2008, the house was demolished. The special collections of the UCLA Library were endowed with the papers of Randolph Scott, which, including photographs, scrapbooks, notes, letters, publications, and even house plans.